Danielle Cox from Newcastle won her chance to sail in the Sydney to Hobart Classic through a magazine competition. Sailing on Kodak Express, Danielle has found new inner strength when confronted by lack of sleep and seasickness. Late yesterday, the yacht turned back to the Port of Eden with several of its crew debilitated by illness. Danielle, however, is staying with the boat, which has resumed the race minus 5 of its crew. Another dramatic development involving one of 11 Lake Macquarie yachts saw Ninja Go dismasted and retire from the race at Ulladulla. The northern yachts are led by Condor of Currabubula at 11th, while other boats are experiencing mixed fortunes. 97 is level pegging, while Dictator has moved up, followed by Colex Onyx, which has dropped back a little. Alstar is maintaining its place, while Highland Fling has moved up 6 places. Margarita has also dropped back. Andrew Lobb, NBN News.
The Moth titles are already underway in the lake. Today the Cherub National Championships began with 2 invitation races. The first 2 of 7 heats will be contested tomorrow, with the Australian title wide open as the defending champion is now competing in another class. 42 boats are now chasing that honour. Belmont's Rocky and Bullwinkle, sailed by Bart Smith and Greg Stavino, one of the favourites. Both have won national titles before and got off to a solid start today, winning the first invitation race. July saw the first game of footy under lights at number 1 Oval, Western Australia upsetting Newcastle. Charlestown's Frank Wilson won the Newcastle District Bowls title, while Shelley Andrews was part of Australia's win in the Hockey World Cup. Speculation intensified about David Waite's future as Canberra's Brett Mullins demolished the Knights. To August, and a New South Wales Selection 15 defeated Western Samoa as Newcastle began its off-field preparation to enter the New South Wales competition. Highfields Azuri won its 3rd consecutive soccer premiership, while Stephen Dewick won silver and gold at the Commonwealth Games. Months of speculation ended with the appointment of Malcolm Reilly to coach the Knights, while Toronto's Terry Pastamoglu was named Newcastle Rugby League's Player of the Year. But that joy turned to despair, with Curry winning its 2nd consecutive grand final. To September, and Mark Guy's Yamina won the Central Coast grand final, while Scone beat Aberdeen in the Group 21 decider. The Breakers board stood down and appointed an administrator, while in racing Social Rule won the Cameron Handicap, while a brilliant ride by Chris Muntz got Umpala home in the Gold Cup. Maitland upset Singleton to win the Newcastle Rugby Union Premiership, while one of the nation's best ever footballers, Phil Hawthorn, lost a long battle with cancer. University defended its hockey title, while one of the hits of the year was Utah on Rucker, a play which arguably cost the Falcons a place in the playoffs. And sadly for the Knights, September ended with another reserve grade grand final loss, this time to Cronulla.
As 1994 prepared to consign itself to the history books, revellers crowded Newcastle's waterfront. As well as the fireworks came the fun, from black tie-doos to dance till you drops along the foreshore, in parks and pubs. Extra police were rostered on to diffuse unruly behaviour. Booze bans were declared on public parks in Port Stephens. Despite a busy night, there were few arrests. But by morning there wasn't much for council workers to celebrate. It's their job to clean up tons of bottles, broken glass and cardboard. 80 whiz bins of bottles were collected at one park alone. The beach hotel at Merewether has become a landmark for New Year's Eve celebrations. Crowds spill into the park over the road. Its lawn peppered with broken glass.
A disgraceful mess, and I feel sorry for the people that's got to clean it up.
76-year-old Bessie Donaldson is besieged in her home next to the park each New Year's Eve.
I believe people should enjoy themselves, but not to the extent that they're doing it. I think it's wrong. And I think they should have a little respect for the people who's got to put up with them.
The 13-metre cruiser was deliberately driven onto Caves Beach by its skipper after it apparently started taking water around 1 this afternoon. Heading for Swansea Heads and the entrance to Lake Macquarie, the boat Deja Vu was nearly home after a rough trip from Sydney when one engine died and the crew found water lapping around their feet. Caves Beach Surf Club members watched the boat cross a reef and then head for the shore.
We had to get the people out the water there, and he just seemed to want to get ashore as quickly as possible and abandon the boat.
The surf's full of fuel down there now, and I believe that when the boat came in, it went across the reef, and it's probably been holed also.
Swimmers were moved from the area, some trying to help the owners point the boat back towards sea. The police launch from Newcastle will attempt to tow the cruiser off tonight. There was more than a little leftover tinsel glistening in the sun on New Year's Day. The lawns of Newcastle's foreshore and Merewether Beach Park were laced with broken glass. 80 whiz bins full of broken bottles were collected at Merewether. The grass still won't be safe to walk over in bare feet for months. It's the ugly side of New Year's Eve in Newcastle.
The main thing, I'm happy to see that nobody got killed, and that's that anything after that's a bonus. But I do get a bit angry when I see bottles just smashed up fine and just all over parks. We've looked at the idea of banning them in certain areas, but when we really get right down to it's nearly impossible to ban bottles.
The clean-up costs ratepayers more than $10,000, but Deputy Lord Mayor Frank Rigby believes the problem could be eliminated if refunds were offered on empties, and he'll be taking the idea to council.
We used to have it before, and I think if we can get a 4 or 5 cents deposit on the bottle, you'll find there wouldn't be one of these bottles hit the ground.
The Newcastle Breakers were dropped from the national soccer competition this season because of a $2.6 million debt accumulated over the past 3 seasons. Breakers chief Pat Clark says the creditors will be repaid and the debt written off. The consortium comprises Newcastle business interests and a businessman from Sydney, but no names have been released. The Breakers will become the tenant of the licensed club and ground, and Mr Clark says moves will be made within the next fortnight to the Australian Soccer Federation for Newcastle to enter a team in the national competition next summer. Austral Park is the second major Newcastle sport complex to have its debt lifted in recent months. The state government paid a debt of more than $2 million on Marathon Stadium, home of the Knights rugby league team at Broadmeadow.
Donning the athletic spikes after being plucked from the football field, 17-year-old Clay Murphy hasn't looked back. His talent and unique haircut have made him one of the nation's rising track stars.
It seemed to help while I was up in Brisbane. Brought me time down 2 seconds, so I was happy. Thought it might help this time.
Before those nationals in Brisbane, Murphy proved too strong in the state championships, these efforts securing him the #1 ranking for 18-year-olds in Australia. Next week he will compete in several events in Queensland against Olympian Michael Joubert and is confident of running a qualifying time for the Worlds within the next 6 months.
The World Junior qualifying's 48.1, which hopefully I'll be able to get under that for Nationals and then bring the time down further for the World Juniors.
His coach Paul Nancaro, himself a formerly nationally ranked athlete, believes Murphy has a big future considering his rapid rise.
Considering he's only 17 and you don't hit your peak till 24 and he's already at 48.5s, he's probably going to be looking at running 45s, 46 by the time he's finished, that'll get him into World Games, Olympic Games and Commonwealth Games.
The record output is regarded as evidence of the Hunter Valley coal industry. The record output is regarded as evidence of the Hunter Valley coal industry maintaining its position as a reliable supplier to the world market. Local coal exports rose last year to 45.6 million tonnes, compared with 44.6 million tonnes the previous year. More than 60% of the coal went to Japan, with Korea accounting for 16% of exports and Taiwan 8%. The Port Waratah company says the increase follows 2 years of development in the Hunter Valley coal chain, with increased production, improved rail haulage capacity and better shiploading procedures paying off. The company opened its second berth at the Kooragang coal loader in October. It says its step-by-step expansion program will continue, with extensions to the Kooragang coal stockyard due for completion in the middle of this year and a second shiploader due for installation by March 1996.
Today's showery weather kept Rachel McQuillan off the court for most of the day, but didn't totally hinder her training. After 3 months at home, she leaves for Tasmania this week, bypassing next week's New South Wales Open in preparation for the Australian Open.
I decided to play Tasmania mainly because I did really well there last year. I reached the final, and also by doing that I've got a lot of points to defend, and so it's a nice surface down there. It's a bit quicker than the Australian Open surface, even though they're both rebound ace, and I think it sort of suits my game.
Ranked around 60th in the world, McQuillan is hopeful of a good performance at the Aussie Open and is confident of slashing her ranking by half in 95.
I've been to about 6 finals of big tournaments, and I'd love to win one, so that's my main goal, to win a tournament and to get my ranking under 30.
Meantime, Maitland's Jane Taylor and Newcastle's Trudy Musgrave will both try to qualify for the New South Wales Open this Saturday as part of their build-up for the Australian Open. Taylor made the third round of our national tournament last year and proved she is again approaching her best form with a win in the Manly Seaside Open last week. Taylor and Musgrave will team up for the doubles in the New South Wales Open.
While most of Australia's missing persons are found, New South Wales alone has nearly 750 unsolved cases. It's a job made difficult for police because of tough privacy rules protecting confidential records. But in some cases, there are exceptions.
We have established a protocol with the Social Security Department through Canberra that if we believe that a person has been abducted or has been murdered, then that information that we're seeking may be made available to us under a strict protocol.
It's an example Chief Superintendent Heinz Moller believes should be adopted by other agencies. While the idea of a federal ombudsman has merit, he claims it's police who need direct access to files kept by various organisations and departments.
I think that if the information was made available to officers from the Missing Persons Bureau in each state under a strict protocol of privacy, then perhaps we wouldn't duplicate that workload.
While each state has its own bureau, a national register of missing persons is yet to be set up. If changes in privacy legislation follow, police say not only will their job be made easier, years of anguish and suffering by families could be saved.
Well, it certainly has been a long time coming, and any advance in that particular area would be greatly appreciated by the police.
A long time ago, when ships sailed into Newcastle, supplies were low and crews were hungry.
This is the story of one very special crew and one very special race. The butchers in town for a hungry war. They race their teams through...
I what?
I, Mrs. Bliss, and get the order. Simple.
With the threat of going broke, Mrs. Booth employs the young, fit and confident Sylvester to bring the two lanky seafarers into line. Together they set off on an adventure around the fort, meeting up with mermaids, convict ghosts and sharks.
I'm here to win the next race, that's all.
Oh! So you've got experience, have you?
The butcher boat race is playing at Fort Scratchley Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays for the next 4 weeks.
A series of freak storms have hit the northern tablelands in recent weeks, leaving behind a trail of damage. In the central west at Condobolin, storms hit, dumping 100 millimetres in just on an hour. It was a destructive force, but some natives are flourishing with the attack. native grasses, giving drought-stricken farmers some hope.
These grasses have come back in 4 weeks following decent rain and produced a lot of valuable feed. And they're also, as you can see here, going to seed, so they're going to produce plenty of seed for the next dry time too.
While in the past native grasses have been overlooked in preference to introduced pastures, Paul Lucan says farmers are beginning to realise their value, especially during drought.
It's not only providing feed, it's also giving stability to the soil. There's plenty of organic matter on the surface of the soil, and that'll keep the organic matter level in the upper soil pretty good.
With the increasing interest in native pastures, New South Wales Agriculture is working to commercialise a number of varieties.
Block 3 of the Mater has yet to open its doors to patients, but already the news has spread. Facilities have been vastly improved. Here, several walls have been gutted in preparation for work to start. It was originally due to be finished by last August. Builders are still working on the finishing touches, but the hospital says the new wards will be ready for patients by the end of the month.
The sooner they can get in there and the sooner we can use it, both our staff and the patients will be happier, but obviously we're not going to occupy it until we're totally satisfied with the end product.
This ward is where tens of thousands of Novocastrians drew their first breaths before paediatric services were transferred to the John Hunter in 1991. It will soon accommodate 18 medical patients. The haematology ward 4H, notorious for cramped conditions and lack of facilities, will be relocated. Its patients, the first to try what Mater staff boast is now the Rolls-Royce of hospital accommodation, equal to the best in New South Wales. Block 3 will also house 29 acute surgical beds.
The Mater Hospital was built in certain areas back in 1921, so some of our stock's fairly aged, so we're constantly trying to improve the facilities.
Since undergoing a $5 million facelift 12 months ago, business at the Esplanade has boomed. Now the owners want to expand even further. They've lodged a development application with council to build 9 townhouses, 33 apartments, swimming pools and a tennis court. There are plans to update the existing motel, 35 additional rooms, 6 suites and 30 serviced apartments, lifting it to a 5-star rating.
5-star has been one of those catch cries in Newcastle, and no one to date has been able to come up with a 5-star hotel. This will be a 5-star resort rather than a hotel.
The $15 million complex will be built on the Parnell Place bus site, bought by the developers from State Transit 2 years ago. Architects say careful attention has been given to the design.
A very strong emphasis on urban design, on how we treat the elevations and the impact we have on Parnell Place to make sure that we create finally the square that was intended for Parnell Place.
The serviced apartments are tipped to be the most popular feature, offering self-contained accommodation for families.
We've had a lot of trouble presenting any other image other than industrial, corporate, and this will enable us to market to a family, tourist and a much wider range of overseas tourists.
If council approve, work will begin in June. Melinda Smith, NBN News.
The last time the Civic Theatre was the target of vandalism, it cost the council around $6,000, $1,000 for each plated window broken. A man is due to face charges over that incident next week.
It's been continuously vandalised ever since we finished it.
Councillor Rigby says that the theatre has been attacked at least 15 times in the 18 months since the renovations were finished. So bad has vandalism become that council's considering introducing electronic surveillance and posting rewards for anyone seen damaging any council property. But it's not just the council that has borne the financial brunt.
It's shops all the way along Hunter Street, and some shop owners, he did mention one particular chap that was thinking very serious about leaving Newcastle.
Council will discuss the measures at its next meeting. Joanne Shoebridge, NBN News.
According to the Regional Airlines Association, it's not only city dwellers feeling the effects of Sydney's third runway. The move to close down the east-west runway, which crosses the controversial north-south runway, has caused problems for country commuters.
With the closing of the east-west runway, it's slowed the whole air traffic control system down, and the movements that you can get into Mascot every hour, you might say.
Aero Pelican near Newcastle says flights to Sydney around morning and afternoon peak times are worst hit. Frustrated passengers forced to wait up to an hour before takeoff. It's a problem experienced by most major regional airlines. In the northwest, Tam Air says delays are longer in bad weather. The Regional Airlines Association is lobbying Transport Minister Bruce Baird and the Civil Aviation Authority for changes, arguing the new runway has been opened 6 months too early without the proper infrastructure. It's expected the new control tower will be operating by March, but that won't bring an end to the problems. Mascot is still waiting on an updated radar system, and that won't be ready until the end of the year.
Once it's up and running, yes, it'll make the air traffic controllers' job better, and it'll be safer.
Melinda Smith, NBN News.
Emergency services raced to Wangi Point around 5 o'clock after the storm played havoc with holiday boating activities. More than 20 teenagers found themselves in difficulties after their dinghies capsized. A flotilla of boats rushed to the scene, along with the Westpac helicopter, but their assistance wasn't needed, all those in the water making their way to safety. Several other craft were overturned on the lake. All have now been recovered. On the other side of the lake at Belmont, some people were able to get to their boats before the real trouble hit. A small craft was saved before it was washed ashore. The storm kept emergency workers busy with electricity lines down. There have been reports of trees on houses in the Bolton Point area. Numerous lightning strikes have set off fire alarms, calling out fire brigade units.
I'm a Freak on the outside, Persian Flyer and Ivory's Irish is scooting right through near the inside rail. I'm a Freak still in front at the 200, tackled and headed by Ivory's Irish. Ivory's Irish dash past I'm a Freak with 100 to go, and they've come away from Persian Flyer and Attention Getter, but it's Ivory's Irish drawing right away in the last bit, and the Jeff Borgia trained Ivory's Irish comes away to win well over I'm a Freak.
Ridden by Larry Cassidy, Ivory's Irish paid $6.20 for the win and $2.20 for the place. I'm a Freak and Attention Getter filling the minors.
We'll sign the bit and everything. Okay. You can get it out when you get there. On the other side.